Carwood Lipton's story is one of quiet heroism and unshakable resolve. Born in the coal mining town of Huntington, West Virginia, Lipton grew up in an environment that molded his resilience and work ethic. But it wasn't until he joined easy company of the 101st Airborne Division in World War II that his true leadership abilities would emerge. Lipton wasn't a man of grand gestures or loud proclamations. Instead, he led with quiet strength, guiding his men through some of the most harrowing battles of the war. From the invasion of Normandy to the bitter siege at Bastogne, Carwood Lipton's legacy was forged in the fires of war, marked by bravery, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to his brothers in arms. Born on January 30th, 1920, in Huntington, West Virginia, Carwood Lipton came from modest beginnings. His early life was marked by the challenges of the Great Depression and the tough realities of growing up in a coal mining town. Raised by hard-working parents, Lipton learned the values of perseverance and resilience from a young age. These traits would serve him well later in life, though he had no way of knowing at the time. Like so many others of his generation, Lipton's future would be shaped by forces far beyond his control. The outbreak of World War II. After high school, Lipton initially pursued a career in ironworking, another gritty, demanding profession that tested his strength and endurance. But when the world plunged into war, Lipton put aside his tools and answered the call to serve. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in August 1942. Joining the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, known as the Screaming Eagles. His training at Camp Toccoa was brutal, designed to weed out those who couldn't endure the physical and mental strain. But Lipton thrived, showing an early aptitude for leadership even as a private. As Easy Company trained for its role as a paratrooper unit, Lipton quickly earned the respect of both his peers and his superiors. His quiet confidence and unwavering dedication made him a natural leader, though he hadn't yet earned the formal rank to reflect this. The first true test of his mettle came during Operation Overlord, the invasion of Normandy on D-Day. Lipton parachuted into enemy territory, separated from his unit, like so many others, during the chaotic drop. But where some panicked, Lipton remained calm, gathering scattered men and forming an impromptu group that would fight its way through enemy lines. It was in Normandy that Lipton's potential as a leader first began to shine. He wasn't a man who sought glory, he simply did what had to be done. In a series of battles across the French countryside, Lipton displayed a level of courage and composure that earned him battlefield promotions. His leadership wasn't built on bravado or dramatic speeches. It was grounded in the trust he earned from his men. They knew that Lipton would never abandon them, even in the direst situations. His loyalty was to them, and theirs was to him. Lipton's success in Normandy was followed by further battles in the European theatre, each one more challenging than the last. He saw victories, but also losses. Lipton wasn't immune to failure. War had its costs. He lost friends and brothers in arms, and each death weighed heavily on him. Yet, through every setback, he stood tall, becoming a pillar for those who relied on him. His success wasn't measured in medals, though he earned many. It was measured in the lives he helped save and the men he led to safety. Though Lipton had his share of personal successes, the horrors of war allowed him to forget the gravity of each decision. He knew that every victory came at a price, and he was haunted by the faces of those who didn't make it home. Despite these burdens, he continued to lead with determination and humility. His rise through the ranks wasn't fueled by ambition, but by necessity. By the end of his time in Normandy, Lipton had proven himself more than capable, and he would need every ounce of that strength for the battles that lay ahead. As the war progressed, Carwood Lipton's role in Easy Company evolved from that of a humble soldier to an indispensable leader. In Normandy, his calmness under pressure and resourcefulness helped him save lives and rally scattered troops. Lipton wasn't just a man of action, he was a source of strength, a rock for his comrades to lean on when things seemed darkest. But it was during the Battle of Bastogne that Lipton's leadership truly shone. Surrounded by German forces in freezing conditions, with little food or ammunition, Lipton was the glue holding Easy Company together, keeping morale high and hope alive. The winter of 1944 and 1945 would define Carwood Lipton's military career. By then, he had risen to the rank of Staff Sergeant, and his leadership was about to be tested like never before. The Battle of the Bulge, a last-ditch German offensive, caught the Allied forces by surprise, and Easy Company was ordered to hold the line at the Belgian town of Bastogne. Cut off from supplies and reinforcements, surrounded by German forces, and facing one of the coldest winters in memory, Lipton and his men were thrust into what would become a legendary siege. The conditions at Bastogne were unimaginable. Temperatures dropped below freezing, and the men lacked proper winter gear. Many were frostbitten and barely had enough food or ammunition to survive. Yet, through it all, Lipton remained a constant source of strength. He moved from foxhole to foxhole, checking on his men, offering words of encouragement, and ensuring that no one gave in to despair. His leadership wasn't just tactical, it was emotional. Lipton knew that the men needed hope just as much as they needed bullets. The Germans bombarded Bastogne with artillery, but Lipton never flinched. He understood that his men were looking to him, and he couldn't afford to show fear, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. When the Germans demanded their surrender, Easy Company, under Lipton's influence, famously refused. They would not give in, no matter how grim the situation appeared. Lipton embodied that defiance, that unbreakable will. His leadership, though informal at times, was critical to their survival. Victory in Bastogne didn't come easily. The siege lasted 4 weeks, and the constant shelling took a heavy toll on the men, both physically and mentally. Lipton himself was not immune to the exhaustion and stress, but he never let it show. Even in moments of failure, when attacks faltered or when supplies ran out, he kept pushing forward. His ability to stay focused in the face of adversity was remarkable. Men who had lost hope found it again in Lipton's calm demeanor and unshakable resolve. Bastogne would eventually be relieved by General Patton's forces, but by then, Lipton had solidified his place as one of the most respected leaders in Easy Company. His success was not marked by flashy victories, but by his ability to keep his men alive through the darkest days of the war. He was promoted to second lieutenant in recognition of his leadership, but the title meant little to Lipton. What mattered to him was the survival of his men, the brothers he had fought alongside through the fires of war. Carwood Lipton's story didn't end with Bastogne. He continued to serve with distinction through the final months of the war, witnessing the liberation of concentration camps and the fall of the Third Reich. But the experiences of battle had left their mark. When he finally returned home in 1945, the war had changed him forever. He built a successful post-war career, working in the textile industry and later becoming a successful businessman. Yet, despite his achievements in civilian life, the bond he shared with his fellow soldiers remained the defining experience of his life. Lipton passed away on December 16, 2001, at the age of 81, leaving behind a legacy, not just as a soldier, but as a man of integrity, courage, and compassion. His life was filled with both triumphs and trials, but through it all, he remained a steadfast example of what true leadership looks like. His successes were many, but his greatest accomplishment was the respect and admiration he earned from those who served under him. For them, Lipton wasn't just a leader, he was a hero.
All right, ready for a deep dive. Today we're diving into leadership with the story of Carwood Lipton, a name you might not know, but man, after going through these sources, he's someone who deserves to be way more well-known.
What struck me about your research is not just the surface level stuff. You're really trying to get at the core of what made Lipton such an effective leader.
Yeah.
How his experiences shaped him,
Exactly. And talk about being shaped by experience. Lipton's early life, it wasn't easy. Picture this. 1920s West Virginia, right in the middle of the Depression, growing up around coal mines.
Talk about a time and place where resilience wasn't some trendy word. It was just how you lived. Those early years dealing with hardship, it built something in him. That grit you can't just learn from a book.
And it wasn't just the mines, right? You mentioned he was an iron worker right out of high school. That's intense, demanding work. Talk about a crash course in discipline.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Almost like he was unknowingly prepping for the intensity of World War II. Because 1942, the world's on fire, and what does Lipton do? He volunteers.
Volunteers. You could have kept working, contributed in other ways, but he chose to be right there in it. Tells you something, doesn't it?
For sure. Sense of duty, facing challenges head on, and not just any challenge. He picks the 101st Airborne, the 506th Parachute Infantry, the Screaming Eagles. That's not just joining up, that's signing up for the toughest thing there is.
Screaming Eagles. Even I know how legendary those guys were. Elite training, dangerous missions, the real deal.
And that training at Camp Tucko, that was brutal. Mentally and physically, designed to weed people out, make sure only the toughest were left.
Lipton didn't just survive it, he excelled. Even as a private. That's what I find interesting. What was it about him, even then, that made him stand out?
Your source mentions his leadership, even back then, kind of shining through. He wasn't just going through the motions, he was absorbing everything, showing that work ethic, that quiet determination that set him apart.
Okay, so let's jump ahead. D-Day. Chaos of the Normandy landings, men scattered everywhere, total confusion, danger everywhere you look.
Just trying to imagine the courage it took to land on those beaches, under fire, the weight of the world on their shoulders. Some guys froze, totally understandable. But your sources paint a different picture of Lipton.
He doesn't panic. He starts gathering soldiers together, forming a unit right there in the chaos. That's not just bravery, that's quick thinking, being able to adapt, to lead in a crisis.
Exactly. He sees what needs to happen. They got to regroup to survive. He doesn't hesitate. He steps up. That's where all that character we talked about, those early years, it pays off. And that's when we start seeing those battlefield promotions. Climbing the ranks, not by, playing the game, but by being so damn good at what he did. Courage, competence.
Like the chaos, kinda. Clarified his leadership. Earned respect, not by demanding it, but by showing it every step of the way.
Right. You see it in how his fellow soldiers talk about him from your source. Quiet determination, laser focus on the mission, and always looking out for his men.
Couldn't have been easy to maintain that focus with what they were going through. You mentioned a quote about Lipton feeling the weight of every decision, every life lost. Man, that's heavy.
Oh, absolutely. The deeper we go in your research, you see that toll it took. Victories, they were always bittersweet. Always that understanding of the cost. He wasn't some, war glorifier. He saw it for what it was. Brutal.
Makes Bastogne all the more incredible then. Battle of the Bulge, out of nowhere, brutal winter conditions, easy company, right in the thick of it. Surrounded, outgunned, running low on everything.
Your source, it really captures how desperate those first days at Bastogne were. Freezing, frostbite, low on ammo, cut off. More like a fight for survival at that point than anything.
And Lipton's a staff sergeant by then, right? Responsible for all those men, not just himself anymore.
Exactly. That's where the leadership, it takes on a whole other level. Being brave in battle's one thing. Keeping morale up, hope alive when everything looks bleak. That takes something else. Deep down strength.
Sounds like, from your source at least, his men looked to him for that. Reassurance. A sign that giving up, it wasn't an option. And he gave them that, even against those odds.
More than gave it, he lived it. That defiance, that story, right? Germans asked for their surrender. Imagine being in that spot, freezing, exhausted, outgunned. Enemy offers what seems like the easy way out.
Hard to imagine saying no, honestly. Most would jump at it. But easy company, with Lipton's influence, they say no, just... But what a powerful no that was.
And no, it wasn't just about not surrendering. It was about not giving in to despair, believing in something bigger than themselves even then.
And Lipton, whether by giving orders or just by being who he was, He embodied that, never gave up, and because of him, neither did they, and they hold. Against all odds. Reinforcements finally get through. Lipton's leadership during those insane days at Bastogne, it didn't go unnoticed, did it?
No, not at all. He's promoted to lieutenant after Bastogne. Recognition definitely deserved. But if we've learned one thing about Lipton, it's not about the titles, is it?
Never was, right? It was the men he served with. Those bonds forged under fire that meant everything.
And that's what I keep coming back to. He understood the weight of leadership, sending people into danger. That never left him, but he also never let it, break him.
Makes you wonder, though. Someone like that, seen so much, lost so much. How do you even come back from that? Transition to civilian life?
And that's what's so powerful about your research.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from that. Lipton's story, it's complex. Those scars, the memories, they were part of him.
He did go on to have a successful career, though, right? Like, he proved himself all over again, but in the business world this time.
He did. But the war, those experiences, they shaped everything. How he saw the world, how he led, even in that totally different setting.
And isn't that the real legacy? Not just medals, promotions, but the impact you have, the lessons you carry, long after the fighting's done.
Absolutely. And your source, it nails this with one quote. Someone who served under him said, "He was a hero to us." Not some general, not a name in a history book, but a hero to those who knew him, fought alongside him, saw his courage, his compassion firsthand.
Powerful, isn't it? To earn that kind of respect, quiet admiration from the guys who were right there with him, says more than any medal ever could.
It's a good reminder. Real leadership, it's not about seeking glory. It's about serving others, helping them be their best, even when things are at their worst.
Carwood Lipton. His story might be over, but that legacy, that quiet strength, how dedicated he was to his men, it sticks with you. And it makes you think, what can we still learn from him, even now?
It's what I keep coming back to. In a world that's so loud, all about promoting yourself, instant everything, Lipton's a powerful counter to that.
He reminds us that real strength, real leadership, it often comes from within. Leading by example, quiet competence, being dedicated to something bigger than yourself.
And that's worth remembering as we face our own challenges, right? Our own battles, even if they're not fought on a battlefield.
Carwood Lipton. Proof that the human spirit, it's an incredible thing. And a shining example of leadership, the best kind there is.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, it makes you wonder, right? How many stories like his are out there? Ordinary people living lives of quiet heroism, just waiting to be discovered, offering all of us some inspiration.
It's humbling, yeah. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear combat boots or a business suit. Or maybe, just maybe, they're the quiet ones living their lives right next to us with integrity and courage.
So many untold stories in the world. Resilience, leadership, the human spirit overcoming incredible things.
And that, I think, is the perfect place to leave it. A reminder to look closer, listen deeper, find the extraordinary in what seems ordinary.
You never know where you'll find inspiration.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deeper.
By the end of the war, Carwood Lipton had proven himself not only as a courageous soldier, but as a leader of unparalleled dedication. His ability to lead under the worst conditions imaginable earned him the respect and admiration of all who served alongside him. After the war, Lipton continued to achieve success in civilian life, but his legacy as a hero was already cemented. The memory of his actions in Normandy and Bastogne serves as a timeless example of what it means to lead with honor, humility, and courage. Carwood Lipton's story is not just about battles won, it's about a life lived in service to others.